Welcome to the AQS Guild Buzz with Bonnie. This is a really fun program that I've been doing recently where I get to go out and talk to representatives of different guilds all across the country. And today we have Lynn Sykes, who is representing the Smoky Mountain Quilters of Tennessee. Welcome, Lynn.
Thank you, Bonnie. This is a great program that you've started to get all the guilds to talk about what they're doing to help the other guilds figure out how to get through this.
Well, not only that, but you know what? The guilds have been sharing lots of things that they do when they're in their regular meeting times. And we're always all looking for different ideas that we can use for our guild. So
Yes,
I hope that people
yes, we
will
are.
they'll watch multiples of these programs because you'll pick up some good ideas.
I have. I've watched all of them and picked up some ideas that I want to pass along to the board when we start meeting again.
One of the ones I did recently was the League of Northern Colorado Quilters, and they did an outdoor show and tell, and they asked their members to take a picture of whatever they've been working on and a picture of, and put themselves in the picture so that they could share it since they hadn't seen each other for a long time. And it was really fun to look through those pictures, wasn't it?
It was and the scenery was amazing. I mean, not just the quilts, but the where Colorado is such a beautiful state. So yes, those pictures were a lot of fun.
Yes. Well, let's start and talk a little bit about the Smoky Mountain Quilters, of how you got started and how many members you have, just a little background information.
Okay, right now we have probably around 100 to 120 members. The guild started back in 1980, so this will be our 41st year as a guild. It started in the home of one of the founding members, and they wanted to get together to work with the State Fair in Nashville to put on a quilt show. And after they had helped with that quilt show, they were a little bit concerned because they did not allow the teachers to put quilts into the show. So they were a little concerned that people would not see really high quality quilts. So they decided that they would do their own quilt show, and our mission since then has been to educate quilters about how to better their skills and to introduce new people to quilting.
Well, yes, and you know, you always learn when you enter your quilts too, don't you? Because
Yes, you
especially if
do.
you have a judge show, you usually get some kind of a critique, and you know, that's just really things to help you make your quilts better.
That's one of the things that when I first joined the guild that I enjoyed the most was going to the days of judging and actually watching the judge and what she was or he was looking for. And then when I got that critique from them, looking at it and seeing what I needed to do to get better,
Well,
it was wonderful.
Well, and if you ever have an opportunity, those of you who are out there watching, one of the best places to be at a quilt show is to help with the quilt judging. And it takes a lot of hands to make that happen, but you do learn an awful lot on the judging floor.
Yes, you do. It's a wonderful experience, and I would, like you, would encourage everyone to help because it's fun.
Yes, and not only that, you get to touch the quilts back there too, don't you?
Yes, you do, and you can get really up close to them and see how people do things. It's a lot of fun.
It is. Well, let's talk a little bit about some of the things that your group does for charity.
Okay, we have three places that we do most of our charity work for. The first is, of course, the Quilts of Valor. We have a very strong Quilt of Valor group, and part of that is a small men's group that meet to sew quilts together, and then they're part of the presentation process. Then we have historically made quilts for Ronald McDonald House. They have been shut down because of the pandemic. And so we've started giving quilts to Suzannah's house, and that group works with mothers that have addiction issues, and we make quilts for the children of these mothers. So,
Wow, that's a good program and one I haven't heard of before too. So that's reaching a little differently into your community.
yes, I believe it's a local project. We also have worked with some of a group here in town that helps refugees that have come into the area to help them get settled, and we've given a few quilts to them.
Well, I bet that quilt hanging behind you is a quilt that is a Quilt of Valor, is it not?
It is. It was quilted uh, by a woman that's not actually in our guild, but it was pieced by her. It was quilted by one of our men members, Andrew Lee, who some of your viewers may know. He has this absolutely gorgeous quilt that shows the raising of the flag over Iwo Jima. And he is a veteran who took up quilting to handle his PTSD. And he has become a big part of our guild and is very active in the Quilts of Valor. That is his heart.
Okay, all right. And well, I see some other quilts back there too. Tell us what those are.
Those are some of our charity quilts that probably will go to Suzannah's house. Um, During this pandemic, the two women that have been in charge of our charity quilts have done a great job in getting kits made where you can either get a kit that you piece the quilt or you can get one where you actually quilt it. And then they take the quilts that are finished and deliver them to the Suzannah's house.
Yes, well, all right. So let's talk a little bit about that because how exactly are you exchanging kits and quilts and everything during this time?
Well, that's been the fun part. They package them up in some sort of protective packaging. They put them in the trunk of their car, and they'll meet a member at a parking lot, usually at the church where we meet. And the member will come to the parking lot, get out, get into the trunk, get their quilt, or put one in that they have finished. So it's all very safe, and no one touches anything, and it's been a great experience. And the two women have been fabulous about meeting other people and getting those quilts made and delivered.
Well, yes, and so you're making kits, and so where do you get your materials that you use to make those kits?
Different places. A lot of times, a member will clean out their stash and donate them. We just had a member that passed away during a few months ago, and she donated several boxes of fabric. So those are the fabrics they used. And when we were having meetings, we would have a block of the month swap, and some members didn't want their blocks, so they would donate those. And then some members are making the quilt start to finish.
Okay, all right. Well, you know what? It always is good when people donate to our local quilt guilds like that to be able to use to make all those charity quilts.
Yes, yes.
Well, let's talk a little bit about what are you doing now? How are you holding your meetings now? Are you having to use Zoom? What exactly is going on with your group?
Okay. We have not actually had a meeting since March of 2020. The board meets via Zoom. The Quilt Show committee meets via Zoom. We have several Bs, and they have decided among themselves to meet at local parks. And, everybody brings their lawn chair and wears their mask and works on whatever they need to be working on at that time. So and then we stay in contact with each other through our monthly newsletter. And so you were talking earlier about the Colorado group having their show and tell. We did our show and tell twice through the newsletter. So we would have everybody send in whatever they were working on, a picture of that, and it was put in the newsletter and distributed to everyone in the guild.
Okay, well, I know that we're all working on all kinds of projects. I want to tell you just a little bit about the quilt that's hanging behind me. Recently, I've been doing some free classes that are available on Quilt TV. That's the AQS channel on YouTube. And the first one was a 9-patch, and it was really about the basics of making quilts. And the current one that's going on right now is quilting with triangles. And this is the project behind me that we used for that. So you learned several different ways to do half square triangles, quarter square triangles, and flying geese. So it's got jam-packed with lots of tips and I made it and I even quilted it myself, which normally I send my stuff out to be quilted, but I wanted everybody to know that if I can do it, you can do it too.
Good for you. Good for you.
Well, and certainly part of the impetus for doing those classes was a lot of people bought sewing machines to make masks. And we really felt like, okay, now they own a sewing machine and they know how to make a mask, so they know how to sew some seams. And so they need to learn the next thing. So if you have new quilters or even intermediate quilters in your group, encourage them to go to quiltweek.com/letsquilt, and that's where you'll find all of the lessons, and they're all free. And each class so far has had 6 lessons in it, so that you work from the very beginning through the whole project.
What a great idea. I'll put it in the newsletter and send it out to the Guild, because you're right. There was a lot of sewing machines sold during the pandemic. And so I think we're going to have a whole new group of quilters when the world opens up again.
Well, I can already tell you just from the people I've communicated with on those lessons that we've already notched into some of those new people to take these classes. And once you learn how to make the basic quilt, how do you make a block, and then how do you put sashing in it, and how do you put borders on it, and how do you make it into a quilt sandwich, and then how do you put the binding on? And of course you always want to put a label on the very last thing, right?
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. That's very important. We have one of the Hall of Fame quilt historians in our guild, and she is all the time, don't forget that label.
Well, yes, because many of us participated in those Quilt Search projects for every state, and we found a lot of quilts that didn't have any kind of name on them whatsoever. So it just needs to be, what did you make it for? Who did you give it to? When did you make it? Where do you live? Where do they live? So that you have some historical provenance on that quilt.
Yes, it's so important, especially because, women have predominantly been the quilters, and it's a great record of our history.
It certainly is. Well, I know you told me that you're planning to have a quilt show in July.
We are. I think we're going to be one of the few guilds that are doing it, but we decided that we needed this to come together as a group. We might not be able to have meetings, in person, but we can plan our show until July. It's going to be July 30th and 31st. It will be our 40th show. It's had quite a history. It's gone through several changes, but we usually have a couple hundred quilts. Last year 2019, we had 218 quilts, and they were from all over the United States. That's one of the nice things about our show, is that we do get entries from all over the United States. And we give away over $6,000 in prize money.
Wow.
So it's a great show. It's a great show. We'll have probably 20 to 25 vendors. On Friday, Mary Kay Waldvogel, who is in the Quilters Hall of Fame, will do 2 bed turnings. And then on Saturday, Teddy Pruitt is coming to do a couple of talks for us during the day. So it's going to be a fabulous show, and I hope that the viewers will, if they can't come to the show, will at least enter a quilt in it.
Well, and tell us exactly where are you going to hold that?
It will be at the Expo Center, which is in North Knoxville, in Knoxville, Tennessee.
Well, and so that's a big enough space that you'll be able to spread things out to have wide aisles and plenty of space for people to feel comfortable. And you will probably then have to go with the same safety protocols with the masks and the social distancing.
Yes, we will continue to require everyone to wear a mask. The hall is, because it's an expo center, is quite large, so we'll be able to space everyone out. The room that we used to do the bed turnings in, we are actually going to probably move the bed turnings out into the main area, so there will be plenty of room for everyone, so that we don't have to limit the number in the room.
Well, let's tell everybody a little bit about exactly what a bed turning is.
Okay, what Mary Kay does is she will go through either her quilt stash or through a stash of someone else in the guild, and they will be quilts that are probably from, the 1800s. And as she showed, she will lay all the quilts on a bed, and as she lifts up a quilt, she will talk about the history of that quilt. She'll talk about the material, the fabric that was used, the actual quilt blocks, what area of the country it might have come from. It's quite an entertaining hour or so. Mary Kay is very knowledgeable.
Well, yes, and I would certainly encourage anyone, no matter what quilt show you go to, if they have a bed turning, be sure to put that on your agenda, because you're going to see, first of all, you're going to see some beautiful old quilts. I know
Yes.
Mary Kay has a wonderful collection, and I bet Teddy Pruitt is going to be there. She also has a wonderful collection of older quilts. And Teddy's has lots of quilts that are very funny. So if she's
Yes.
doing a lecture for you, I bet you'll have some fun with that as well.
Well, that's what I've heard. I've never had the privilege of hearing her, but I've heard she's hilarious. So I'm looking forward to that.
You will enjoy that. Well, all right. Is there anything else you'd like to share about your guild?
No, it's just a wonderful collection of women and men. We love what we do, and we love quilting. It's just and it's a great fellowship for fellow artists.
Well, thank you so much, Lynn, for being with us today and talking about the Smoky Mountain Quilters. And we'll look forward to seeing you here again next Wednesday.
All right. Thank you, Bonnie. I appreciate you having us.